Executors visited them in the night, and they were never seen again. And as this war dragged on, it seemed there were less and less Galtons who had a problem with this, as the relentless neo-propaganda played on every form of media. And worryingly, there was more and more indiscriminate brutality to the culls taking place, at home and abroad. The slightest hint of those consigned entire families to oblivion, the requirement for any kind of burden of proof long in the past. Hest gave a wince at the memories of the ovens of the executors burning night and day, spreading the ash of burned corpses over the worlds the hegemony had claimed. Her concerns had a time and place, though, and that was when she could talk freely to like-minded fellow officers away from the prying ears of the executors and their spies. Officers who seemed to be reducing in numbers each day. Not here on the day of the largest invasion in galactic history. A day when her army was fulfilling the hegemony's stated purpose of obtaining the worlds of the people, the one regime in the galaxy more brutal, more authoritarian than her own. "Move us on to Phase 2, she said almost at a whim. With the enemy's defenses crumbling before them, there was the opportunity to save precious time. And as far as she was concerned, every second counted during this invasion. In every invasion the neo-hegemony turned its hand to, in fact. Momentum had to be maintained, for to be bogged down would be death. "Signal the 9th Army. They are to hold the landing zones. The 4th Army is to drop its advanced elements and join the 3rd Mech and advance to contact." How strange, to maneuver entire armies like the individual mechs and troopers I would have a few short years ago. "Understood." No one turned. Behind them, tiers of comms officers sat in long rows, their interface to the millions of men and women of the invasion forces. He barked her orders, letting the myriad controllers translate her strategy into tactics for the individual units. The bustle and chatter redoubled as no one shouted commands. Hest returned her gaze to the hollow as blinking icons of the converted civilian transport ships descended toward the planet, disgorging wave after wave of assault shuttles and dropships. In orbit, other vessels took up position, ready to drop more troops and mechs into the enemy strongholds. Fighters and bombers swarmed and danced around them, able to pounce on any threat on the ground, in air, or in space. A well-oiled machine. Hest gave a thin smile. She didn't agree with the neo-ethos, but by Father Terra she felt satisfaction in seeing her well-drilled, well-trained force slam into the world. And that was despite, not because, of her government's leadership. And it was time to pitch that machine, that war machine, against what the vile people's regime could muster in response to an invasion of one of their key agricultural worlds. Major Gan Korla's wolf fighter thundered through the bloated, roiling clouds. The angry dark mass hadn't disgorged its payload of rain onto the miserable, already sodden surface yet, but from the look of it soon would. Like a switch had been flicked, he surged beneath the overcast sky. The strangely claustrophobic feeling of the cloud layer above and the patchwork fields below gave the false impression he only had a thin sliver of sky in which his S-91 wolf fighter could maneuver. Not that he needed much room. Even if the clouds really were a physical barrier, he would use every inch of space to his advantage. His canopy rapidly populated with targets. Airfields, military establishments, towns and villages. Soldiers and armor concentrations were all bracketed in digital boxes. "All squadrons execute." Behind him, dozens of wolves and raptors erupted from the cloud layer, their formation spreading into a vast fan. Unseen and even higher, the large Hydra bombers would be eagerly making their way to their own targets, ready to disgorge their massive payloads of destruction. "Where are they?" he murmured. The orbital ships hadn't detected anything beyond a token amount of People's Aerospace Army fighters in space and air. The industrial-looking primitive craft and their orbital launch platforms had been swept aside with disdainful ease. But one thing the people weren't lacking was sheer numbers. There must undoubtedly be many things left on this mudball. Except they weren't here. He frowned, banking around to follow a flight of 4 raptors lining up for an attack run on the tarmacked crisscross of an aerospace field. With the tap of his canopy, a window opened, zooming in. "What in Father Terra's name?" Row upon row of People's Aerospace Army craft lined the parking strips, wingtip to wingtip. Dozens of them. They hadn't even been taxied to the dispersals to prevent them being wiped out in single strafing runs.